Hi, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Kimber Lanning, Executive Director and Founder of Local First Arizona. Kimber, tell our class over here at VL 33, the best class ever, I need to add that in. Tell us all a little bit about Local First Arizona.
Sure, and thanks for having me. Local First Arizona is a nonprofit organization that I founded in 2003, and we are now statewide. We have 2,000 independent businesses, and we work really hard to educate consumers about how important it is to choose local businesses. We also work on business-to-business support to make sure that supply chains for local business are as localized as possible. And then we also work with the legislature on helping to create an environment here in Arizona where the local community can thrive.
And you're dealing with 2,000 locally owned businesses, but they vary in size. They can be anywhere from a micro business that has 1 or 2 employees to a larger business.
Absolutely. I think a common mistake is when we talk about local business, people often think we're just talking about small. Mm-hmm. But the way we talk about a local business is that it has to be privately held, so it can't be publicly traded. You can't buy a piece of it on the stock market. Okay. The owner needs to live here 9 months out of the year, and the business has to be unique to Arizona. So that would include such big companies as Shamrock or Hensley Beverage Distributing, Hickman's Family Farms, Ashes is a great one, or even Harkins Theaters.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kimber, describe how you build consensus and commitment around the shared value of Local First to gain and sustain leadership credibility.
Well, I think one of the things we do with Local First Arizona is we work really hard to get our businesses actively engaged. They need to not only understand the message, but they need to be able to speak about the message and really empower themselves to help their friends and family make great decisions about where they're spending their money. I think empowerment is the number one thing we're trying to do. When you peel back all the layers of what we're doing, we're trying to get the public to understand that the American consuming public is the elephant in the room. We can control the economy, and we can also decide if we want to support businesses that are eco-friendly or not. If we don't want sweatshops on the other side of the world, guess what? 3-month boycott. Are we done now? That's all we would need to do is organize people. Okay. And I think the more people we can get to really feel that sense of empowerment, I think that's what's going to keep them all engaged and keep the organization sustainable.
So let's talk about empowerment. How do you do that? How do you empower people to see themselves as part of this larger Local First movement, if you will, of the Local First Arizona community? And is there a difference in that empowerment with a smaller micro business? Is that a different conversation with a locally owned retailer versus a larger corporation like a Hickman's or a Bash's?
It absolutely is. And I think one of the secrets to our success is being able to tailor ever so slightly our messaging to different communities. So some people are entirely motivated by environmental impacts. Okay. They buy locally, buy their food locally because they want to have a smaller carbon footprint. Other people are entirely motivated by knowing that if they choose local, they're creating a more diverse economy, which means there's going to be more opportunities for their children. And yet still another community might be motivated by the bottom line. Maybe they are choosing to be a part of Local First because they want to market themselves as a local alternative to a national. So I think part of the reason we get buy-in is because we are able to tailor our message ever so slightly on the fly.
So you are aware that different things appeal to different people under the umbrella of Local First Arizona?
Absolutely, and I think that's a critical piece. Not everybody comes to the table for the same reasons, and there can be a million different factors leading up to that. It could be education level, it could be cultural background, it could be the size of your company. There's a million different reasons, but it's important to be aware of them all and to really understand what people are expecting from your organization.
Wonderful. So talk to me about the shared values of Local First and the businesses in the way that they're actually reinforced in their everyday organizational operations, be it, again, a smaller coffee house versus a larger business here. What are the types of processes that they need to put in place to really continue on the momentum and the true empowerment of the Local First message?
Well, I think one of the first things they can do, we call it leveraging your localness. One of the first things they can do is talk to their customers about it and their staff. So many businesses don't even take the time to say thank you for choosing a local business. And that's a critical component, because some people might be there and go, oh yeah, I did do a smart thing today. I chose a local business. It needs to be reinforced on a regular basis. But I think, secondly, they need to look at their own supply chains. Local First Arizona will be ineffective if we get all the consumers to go to all the local coffee shops, and all the local coffee shops are completely buying all of their supplies from Costco, and all of their money is sitting in a big bank, and all of that. If they're not localized at all, then the buck stops with them, and it's a broken cycle. So we have to really empower people to think about their role within the context of a healthy local economy.
And I like where you're going with this hurdle of a Costco. So it may be cheaper to go to a big box, but how do you get past that hurdle? Because my understanding is you may think it's cheaper, you might be spending less on those coffee beans, but the reality is there's more money leaving our local economy, and there's some real big price inequities that actually come into play here. So how do you get past that particular, but right now, coming out of my pocket, this is cheaper? How do you get past that?
Sure, and sometimes, frankly, we're not. But basically, our message revolves around every little bit helps.
Okay.
So you're not going to be perfect. Start with a little chunk. Say, this, I'm going to only go to these local restaurants, or I'm going to do, pick one thing that works for you in your lifestyle and change it. Or if you're a business owner, say, you know what, I'm going to do all of my local office supply purchasing, or I'm going to localize my payroll services. Whatever it is that works for you, do that first. But I think the hurdle for the consumer is really understanding, well, two things. One is big boxes aren't always cheaper. They are sometimes, but not always. I encourage people to shop around. That's when you've lost, is when you've forgotten to shop around. They just did a study recently comparing big national pharmacies, 3 of them with local. The local pharmacies were actually cheaper 40% of the time. That's worth calling around on.
It is, but it's not what anyone would think. The assumption
Right.
is if it's a big box, I'm going to get the best.
That's right. So the other piece of that is helping people understand. I love this new tagline we've just come up with, that's cheap is costing us a fortune. So the best way I can describe it is, imagine that we have a big, huge box coffee shop. And we've got 25 of their locations. Okay, and then on the other side, over here, we've got 25 independent coffee shops, all different kinds. Well, these 25 big nationally owned corporate coffee shops, they don't have any local accountants that support them, graphic designers, web developers.
Everything's going across the border.
And they have one web developer supporting all of those, right? So over here, we have 25 web developers have a job. 25 accountants have accounts with these different coffee shops that they represent. So when, imagine just the shape of a mountain here with a number of jobs that are indirectly supported by choosing one of these 25 independent. This model over here is much healthier for a sustainable economy. So we won't name any names, but these coffee shops over here are not necessarily any cheaper. We all know that. These over here, you know that your money is staying and recirculating in the economy. So once people get that and the light bulb goes off, it's like, oh my gosh, if we continue to just support these, there's not going to be any jobs left. I mean, hypothetically, if you take that out over time and we're all buying online from one company and we're all going to the same coffee shops and the same 3 restaurants, where's everybody going to work? You can't do that. It's not a healthy, local, diversified economy. So once you get people empowered, they're willing, to go the extra mile. And it might cost more, but it might not. It might not.
Well, if people are employed, then they're spending money in our local economy, and so I'm not so, which we need tax dollars. We need to be spending money to have schools and police and fire and a variety of other things.
Another fun way to look at it is, if let's say you're a chef and you have a restaurant and your only interest is cheap. That is it. You just want to get the cheapest stuff. So you're importing tomatoes from across the country. You're doing all of this stuff has nothing to do with your local economy. So you've saved a whole lot of money. But in doing so, if everybody did that and there were fewer and fewer jobs available, or every accountant that loses one more account, that loses one more client, has less money to go out and eat. So you're a restaurateur, and you're effectively eliminating your own potential customer base, because everybody around you is losing money, losing jobs.
Because everyone's unemployed.
Losing jobs. Now, if you thought
So it's cheap.
holistically about the way you're spending money, then you may support companies that support Arizona jobs, who actually may employ people who could come in and eat at your restaurant.
Right. So there's value dilemmas in trying to get people, I guess, to really understand the importance of local first. I love what you have on the light rail and the shift the way you shop, and I know that you're like just 10% or 15% can really make a difference. So I think one of the reasons that Local First Arizona has been so successful is you're not asking people it's not an all or nothing.
Absolutely not. And if we were trying to say it's all or nothing, we would lose. Our goal is not to be here to make people feel guilty about what they are or aren't doing correctly. That's not our goal. Our goal is to remind you that every dollar counts. You say this best, you're voting with your dollar. And if you can make opportunities for yourself to spend locally whenever you can, again, whatever fits your lifestyle, even 10% can make a huge impact. We did a study that looked at a town, 600,000 people. If everyone in that town linked arms and said, we're going to shift 10%, it would create $130 million new dollars recirculating in that community and 1,600 brand new jobs.
Wow.
But it takes a team effort.
Kimber, can I ask you a question? Can I ask a favor of you?
Sure, anything.
If I asked you whose fault it was, what would you say?
You know, I've weighed this out from every angle, and it is absolutely 100% Josh's fault. There's no other way to look at it.
It is all Josh's fault. I totally agree with you.
What am I going to do?
She's right. I'm sure that the class is in consensus. Okay, so before we go here, I have one final question for you. Describe a time in Local First where you had to confront and help people resolve inevitable value dilemmas.
Well, I'm going to answer this two ways.
Okay.
We have very excitable members who do run out, and we are not about anti-big box or anti-chain or anti-big corporation. We like to tell the positive and very factual truth about local economies and help people learn how to celebrate local economies and all their local businesses. And sometimes we have members who are like, I can't believe you're drinking that, you know, that whole negative put down. And that is not what our message is about. So the way we're dealing with that is we created a new program. It's an hour-long program, and we're teaching people how to talk about Local First. Okay. And they're called, once you graduate, you're called an alpha, which is an ambassador of LFA. And we're teaching people how to more productively talk about it. So that's one way to resolve that, is to bring people in, you know, hug them, hold them close, because their intentions are good. And the second thing I will say is, amongst our membership, we try really hard to make sure that everyone is equally heard. But sometimes we'll have somebody that tries to own our message, and I'm sure you're probably very familiar with this. We had a situation in Tucson where we had a member, and everybody in the neighborhood was mad at him because of his parking situation. And they didn't like the way he was responding to the neighborhood by just ignoring them. They were saying, you know, you have overrun cars out of the parking lot. And we literally had other members who tried to get us to kick him out of Local First Arizona because they just didn't like him and they didn't like the parking situation. And I had to go in and sort of navigate that and explain that's not what Local First is. We are not here to say this is we like the way this person is running their business or not. He is 100% local owned, and he does participate in our events and things like that. So, you know, trying to, I think in order to bring everyone along, the best thing you can do is give everyone fair and equal time, make sure they feel heard, and also just talk through it. Explain your logic. Having a face on the organization where I think people are less angry as long as they feel like you spend some time thinking that through.
Even if you don't agree.
That's
Even if
right.
you don't say, I'm going to come in and play police
That's right.
or mother or, you know, that's not it. It's executive director. I didn't see mother in your title. Okay, so we are done, and thank you very much for spending time with me. But
Absolutely.
I need one more favor.
Okay.
We know it's, and I know you spent hours thinking about it, and it truly is Josh's fault. But can you do me just one more favor?
Yeah.
Will you just say class 33, best class ever? Just right to the camera right there.
Class 33, best class ever.